and welcome to episode 37 of the Select Characters podcast. My name is Chris Anderson, and I'm today joined by our very own Enrique Cancel. Hi, man.
How's it going, man?
Hi, I'm doing actually quite all right, and the rest of us, unfortunately, could not be here, so it's just the two of us today. So we're having a bit of a casual characters. We haven't had one of those in quite a while, actually, in a couple of months. So we'll just have some light conversation, I guess. Let's just move on to what we have been playing this week, shall we?
Let's go.
And it has been another fantastic week for video games, and let's talk about what we have been playing. Enrique, what have you been playing this week, mate?
I have been knee-deep in Dragon's Dogma, and actually just started the Dark Arisen content, which I hadn't played before, so it was actually a cool change of pace.
Like, is that like post-release DLC?
Yeah, when Dragon's Dogma came out, it was actually really cool the way the game is set up, because you have like the main campaign, you beat it, and then there's like this post-game, which actually gives you like this whole heightened level of difficulty and some other stuff to do. Mm-hmm. And then a few months later, they released more content called The Dark Arisen, which actually opened up a new island called Bitterback Isle. And it had it's kind of like a labyrinth that has like multiple stage bosses, and it's more, you have to like beat one boss to access the next area and stuff like that.
Right.
And it's
more,
actually pretty cool.
Content as well, like story-wise?
Yeah, it does. One of my favorite parts about Dragon's Dogma is actually the story on it, because it has like this really cool kind of rebirth, re-life kind of story to it. Mm-hmm. And Dark Arisen adds, you definitely appreciate the story in it more having played the original game, even though you can go out there at any point in time, so it's actually pretty cool.
Right. As someone who's not really familiar with the game, could you sum up the premise for the story?
Yes. Basically, a dragon appears in the world every couple of 1,000 years, whenever. It picks a random person, it eats their heart, and the person has to go on a quest to defeat the dragon to get their heart back.
Okay, simple. And the guy or girl that you play is the person whose heart was eaten.
Yes. And you're called an Arisen. And there's a really cool mechanic where there's a group of people in the world called pawns, which they're technically humans, but they don't have, I guess, free will of their own, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. They're almost like dolls. Or yeah, it's weird. Like they have very little in the way of personality, and they're almost like brain dead, catatonic. And when you meet an Arisen, when they meet an Arisen, they kind of wake up and come to life, and then they kind of follow the Arisen. So they kind of become your own personal guardian. So that plays a major role in the game, because you have a pawn in the game that you can design yourself, and you can actually hire other people's pawns. It's kind of like Demon Souls, where it plays on a server. So I've been hiring Sam's pawn once in a while to kind of help me out with certain missions and stuff.
Right. Is there a way to play with your friends as well, or is it just their pawns?
Unfortunately, it's single player only. The only contact you have with friends, like I said, is just being able to go through the Rift area and find their pawns if they have one and hire them out.
Right. Okay.
So I mean, it's still cool because the whole concept of the pawn and everything does tie into the overall story, which I don't want to spoil too much. But I mean, it's actually been one of my favorite kind of twisty stories in a while. It's got the high kind of that dark fantasy feel to it.
Yeah, the whole the pawn system sounds pretty cool, actually. It gives you the idea that the world is actually alive, that you are sort of connected to other people playing the game without actually playing with them. So that's
it's
cool.
Actually, and it's cool because you get to see the people's pawns throughout, just wandering the city and wandering the road. So you can stop by and speak to one and hire them immediately, which is kind of nice. Oh. And people can hire your pawn out too, which I think every time you rest on an inn, it'll sync up with the server and it'll let you know if somebody hired your pawn. And if they did, I think when you finish, a pawn finishes their job or when you dismiss them, you can, give them a little rating for their appearance, how helpful they were. You can send them off with an item and stuff. So it's kind of cool.
Huh. Yeah, that actually sounds pretty fresh as far as ideas go.
Like I said, man, this is actually one of the games that I loved when it first came out on PlayStation and Xbox. It's not a perfect game. You can definitely tell it shows its age in some of the mechanics. But overall, though, it's one of those little diamonds in the rough. Mm-hmm. But pretty much just been doing that, and I played a little bit of Sleeping Dogs for Game Club. But I mean, that's one of those games that I never uninstalled because it's my go-to game whenever I want to just wander around.
Yeah, man. The last time I played that game was when it saw its original release.
Right.
And I never played the definitive edition, but it looks a lot better now. And it feels better. The controls seem a bit tighter than they were before, but that might just be my memory.
No, I mean, it definitely feels I know for the controls, one of my favorite things was driving in the game because it was just that far side of arcadey to the point where it was easy to handle, but it didn't seem too gimmicky.
I sort of agree with cars, definitely, but I've been having a bit of a problem with bikes. They
The
don't
bikes,
really drive all that well.
Yeah, the bike's just like, it feels like you're just shooting a hockey puck on ice.
Yeah, exactly. And I was crashing into stuff where I wasn't supposed to crash into at all. So yeah, but it's not the main focus of the game. That's the fighting and stuff. The fighting system is pretty great, actually.
I know, dude. It's got like that, and I was talking about this with Sam, but it reminds me of. Did you ever watch Hard Boiled? It was one of those old. It's like the original Super Cop kind of movie.
No, I've never seen it.
It's directed by Ang Lee. It's like one of those like over the top action, using wires and stunts and like gunplay movies.
Right, yeah, like the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon stuff.
Yeah, it's like Hong Kong cinema. And playing Sleeping Dogs, I mean, I'm such a fan of that genre, and playing Sleeping Dogs is like being within that kind of genre, dude. So like for me, it's a trip.
Awesome. Didn't you go to some place like around there at one point?
Yeah, and that's actually why I got interested in the game to begin with. Because it's when it first launched, it was supposed to be I guess a continuation for the True Crime series.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you ever played the True Crime series, but they're kind of like I guess a substitute for GTA.
Yeah.
Except, you always play as an undercover cop trying to infiltrate a gang. And then, I don't know why, but both games had like this weird supernatural turn they took out of nowhere. Like, you're just going to stop a gang. And then at some point it turns the gang is part of a doomsday cult and they're summoning a demon. And the demon comes out and you're like, what the hell's going on? But, yeah, like I used to live in Hong Kong. And when I heard that they were going to release True Crime Streets of Hong Kong, I'm like, oh, dude, that sounds kind of cool. And it got canceled for a while. Then it got picked up by Square Enix, and Square Enix renamed it to Sleeping Dogs. But I mean, they still kept like the same Hong Kong motif. So I mean, that made me kind of pick it up to begin with.
Yeah, is it an accurate reflection of the actual city?
Yes and no.
As someone who lived there,
they take some liberties. Obviously, there's certain areas that are really familiar to it. So it's kind of fun going to like the big landmarks that do exist in Hong Kong, like Scene to Peak and stuff like that. But obviously the street layout and the name for some places are, entirely fictionalized. But I mean, it does a good enough job being what it is.
Yeah, like the atmosphere is at least accurate.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. But yeah, let's save some of that for the game club or else we'll have nothing to talk about. Anything else?
No, I mean, that's major two games. It kind of sucks because we're in the middle of a snowstorm up here in the Northeast. So not much to do except sit down and play like a nice RPG, which is what I've been doing.
Oh, poor you. Stuck in a house with
what was
computer
me?
games.
What about you, man? Anything good this week?
I've still been playing GTA Online. Nothing has changed significantly there. I still think it's sort of fun, but I'm working on a video right now.
I guess, how does it compare to the base game? I mean, is there a lot of meandering around, or do you have like actual structured gameplay to follow?
Oh, no. You've got progression, like a level-based system. Do activities and you get more experience and you level up. And leveling up gives you access to more car mods, tattoos, hairstyles, clothing pieces, and give you money and stuff like that. You can buy houses, you can buy yachts, you can buy airplanes. You can basically buy anything that you can get in the base game. You can also buy in online, although most of the stuff that is readily available to you in single player is behind a paywall, basically, in GTA Online. You've got death matches, you've got races, you've got missions for contacts like Lamar Davis, that dude from the single player campaign.
Oh, nice. Okay, so like they actually show throughout the game.
Yeah. There is a sort of story to it, like different small stories with characters that you know from the base game. Plus, online is set before the start of GTA 5. So you're sort of setting the stage for the main game, as it were.
Well, that's kind of cool. So it doesn't really interfere with the story.
No, not at all. Like it all takes place before the main story. So whatever you do, it doesn't really have an effect on what you're doing in a single player game. And on paper, it's awesome playing on that huge map with other players there. It is quite cool. But the thing is, it doesn't always work correctly, or in most cases, it doesn't work at all.
Like from a technical standpoint or just from people?
No, from a technical standpoint. The game makes it really hard for you to jump into a game and just play for a couple rounds and then go because of the way that joining other games is set up. Right. The game boots you out of the session that you're currently in when it finds a game you want to play. And before it boots you out, and then before it logs you into the other one, it checks if there are enough places available. And if there aren't, you get booted back to your own session. But that whole process takes about a minute, sometimes a minute and a half, which is annoying as shit because the game doesn't tell you if a room is full before you try to enter it. So you'll be watching.
I think I remember that because
Yeah.
I played it briefly when it first released, and I remember one of the issues that I had was it has like that weird 2 or 3 step check system when you want to actually play an online game with somebody, like a campaign thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I remember that being frustrating because I think the extent of what I did was we tried to break into the Air Force Base over and over again so we could each get a jet.
Mm-hmm.
And then we played golf, and I wore like those, like the little pink hot shorts. Yeah, no, but man, like the online, I remember, was actually kind of frustrating when it first came out, just because like that weird lobby waiting thing that I had.
Yeah, that is very annoying. So the game does its hardest to sort of bar you from just having a bit of fun in a couple of games, because technically that game is terrible. Like the way online is set up, it is just terrible. And as a service, I think Rockstar has failed to provide on what was promised. It's terrible. And when it works, it's fantastic. But about 50% of the time, it doesn't work. And it's frustrating. And I found myself just exiting the game after a couple of failed tries, because the way the game is set up, it does not communicate to you if what you want to do is actually possible. It only tells you that after you've tried it. And the loading times are just so long that it just turns into a frustrating slog after a couple of tries.
Yeah, I've heard a couple areas in the game just don't live up to the potential. I heard the heists in particular, they're fun, but they weren't really worth the year wait that Rockstar took on it.
Definitely. They are a lot of fun. And setting them up and stuff, like you have to get the materials before you can start the actual heist. You have to get the proper clothing and stuff. That is great. Setting up the thing is fantastic. You usually get divided in teams of 2, so you're both doing different objectives on the same map and stuff, which is awesome. But it's not great. I don't see why they couldn't have released this way earlier.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah. Like, if Rockstar wants to use this game as a platform to make more money via shark cards, the microtransaction,
right?
Make sure that it's a game that people are willing to shell out a decent amount of money for. Like, even the in-game economy is really skewed towards you buying shark cards, because everything is insanely expensive. Like, insanely expensive. I'm talking some car horns costing more than $12,000 expensive.
Well, I mean, I'm wondering if that's because I remember when the game, when they first released it, there was a lot of issues with the lobby system. Like, people couldn't even play for a while. So it got back to the point where GTA, Rockstar released that in-game stimulus package to give everybody like a little couple $1 million in money just to kind of apologize for, like, hey, sorry, we effed up the launch.
Yeah, but that's not all that much, believe me. A couple of million is not all that much in that game. You can buy maybe a house and a car, and that's basically it. Even I'm not really one for microtransactions because I enjoy playing the game, but I wanted to experience the rest of the content so badly that I actually bought a couple of really expensive, not expensive, inexpensive shark cards just to help the process along a bit more. I don't like it that the game is skewed in that way at all. It just seems very disrespectful to the consumer. And it just doesn't work.
Is it because it takes too long to get money within the game itself, or? No,
it just takes so long to make money from missions. You get maybe between 5,000 and 10,000, sometimes way higher than that per mission. And if a gun already costs you about 50,000 and a cool paint for your gun costs even more than that, if you want to buy something new, you have to do 3 or 4 missions with random people. No, it leaves a sour taste in my mouth, yet I keep coming back to it because I'm sort of invested in what I'm trying to do there.
Oh no, that's like that MMO, it's rearing its ugly head.
Yeah. GTA Online had the potential to be something fantastic, an ongoing thing that just kept on better and better, but they're not really improving it as much as you thought they would, because they seem completely focused on supporting GTA Online in lieu of single player DLC and stuff.
Right.
But I'm not really seeing the worth of all the stuff that they've added to the game post release, because in the end it just comes down to a couple of more cars, a couple of more houses, and some cosmetic stuff.
Well, I mean, it makes you wonder though, what really can you do with an open world game like that? Because the GTA, I mean, aside from the the chaotic gunplay that you can just run around, shoot anything in the city, what really is there to do aside from follow the main story?
Well, I wouldn't mind anything in that game if they only tweaked the economy to be a bit more fair to people who decide not to pay extra for a game they've already paid for.
Right.
And if they revamped the lobby system, just the way that logging in and out of other people's sessions work. That's all they need to do, in my opinion. And the game is a lot better then.
So small fixes.
You'd think that, yeah, but they're not doing it. I don't know. I don't think the video that I'm planning on doing, which is supposed to come out on Monday, which is like 2 days before people are listening to this podcast, I don't think it's actually worth making it now because I've done it here. But yeah. What else? Yeah, that's basically it, really. I'm still pretty sick. I'm having migraine attacks every now and then. So I'm not really doing computer games much lately.
I don't know. It feels like it's just been a slow week. Normally I got like 3 or 4 games going on at once, but lately, especially like Dragon's Dogma, the nature of it, it's just I found one game that I kind of sunk. I think I've got about 60 something hours in it already.
Yeah, that's an RPG. RPGs don't really lend themselves to quick drop in, drop out gameplay. You actually commit to that for like 4 or 5 hour sessions at a time.
Pretty much, yeah. So, I mean, it's time well spent though, so I'm not complaining.
Definitely. All right. If that's everything that we've got to say on that, shall we move on to a couple of topics?
Yeah, let's do it. XCOM 2 is coming out in a few weeks, and I had a kind of a weird moral dilemma where I was debating whether I wanted to buy it as a digital copy or a hard copy, and I ended up buying the hard copy. And it's kind of weird because when I was arguing with myself, I kept talking about all the benefits to just buying digital, how there's pretty much no reason to even get a hard copy, but I still find myself picking them up from time to time. Mm-hmm. I kind of just want to talk about like why we do that. Like what makes you want to buy a hard copy of a game?
Well, because people are mostly buying like digital versions of games now. Developers need to incentivize people to buy the hard copy, like the physical box copy. So they usually include extra stuff in the box that you can't get when you buy digitally, obviously. For instance, the Witcher 3, the basic edition, has that map in it. It's got the soundtrack in it, stuff like that. Like you can get that with the digital version, but you can't get a physical version of that stuff where you buy digitally, like stuff on a CD and stuff on high quality paper and stuff. And
it's not the same as getting like the actual canvas map and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually bought the Life is Strange limited edition recently, and that had a hard copy book modeled after Max Caulfield's art book that she has in the game, and it has like a concept art and stuff within it, which is quite cool. And it's got the CD with the soundtrack, both licensed and a part of the original score on it as well, although not the entire score. My favorite tracks are not on there, which is a bit of a shame. Plus, it looks like a high school mixtape essentially, with like the front cover looks like it's written on by felt pen and stuff like that,
right.
Which is really cool. It's stuff like that still draws me towards buying physical versions of games, because you don't really feel like you've got a games collection if you've got a digital collection of games. I've got over 150 games on Steam right now, but I don't really view it as a collection. Whereas the physical versions of games I view them as prized possessions, basically.
You obviously played Life is Strange beforehand, right?
Oh, yes, I have.
So you essentially bought the game over again.
Yeah, the game's so nice, I bought it twice.
I mean, would you say though that like you didn't really buy the game itself? You mainly bought all that other extra stuff, and the game just happened to come with it.
Oh, that's 100% why I did it. It wasn't the game that drew me to it. It was the extra stuff, because the game I already have on my Steam account. I don't really see the point in having that game twice if all I'm getting when I buy the physical version is just the game.
Yeah, because like for XCOM, when I first bought it, that's what made me get the physical copy. The fact that it came with like that cool little like the honeycomb map layout for the base. Yeah. It came with like the little tags, and it came with like all that like the little patches for the XCOM project. I mean, it's these really cool little small things that it feels like having, like you said, having a nice little collection for it.
Yeah, it just
so I don't
feels
think
like
we're doing the same thing for XCOM 2,
sort.
unfortunately. But I don't know. I still feel like I had to keep up with the tradition.
Yeah, I get what you mean. What is your stance on buying like special and limited editions?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like I've done it before, because like you said, it's not a matter of buying the game. I'm buying what the content is. Like I dropped 150 to get that Skyrim limited edition when it came out, because I wanted that awesome. What is it? Came with the leather-bound art book, which was actually pretty cool looking, and it came with the big Anduin statue. So like I dropped the $150 on those two items. Cool. The game was just like a side thing.
Yeah. That's why I bought the special edition for Wrath of the Lich King. And the World of Warcraft ones, they always look really, really nice, don't they? And they have like a mouse mat.
Dude,
and
I am regretting that I never got, because I didn't start playing World of Warcraft until Burning Crusade launched.
Mm-hmm.
So I regret that I didn't buy the collector's edition of Burning Crusade, because I've gotten actually the collector's edition for most of them up until then, because I like having that collection.
Yeah, plus they're really, really nice to look at, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's just having like those big oblique boxes. Even the collector's edition for Diablo 3, man. I think it just looks gorgeous.
Yeah, definitely. Blizzard is really good with their limited and special editions. They always look fantastic. And I always feel with their stuff that the adventure begins where you unwrap the paper around it, because there's a whole lot of goodies inside the books and stuff, which is really cool.
I know I'm going to feel weird saying this, but I love the smell when you break the plastic off of like a brand new game.
Ah, the new game smell.
Just like that, I'm about to play this. No, but yeah, dude, like, man, I still have all those collection editions, and it sucks because I don't really have a place to put them yet in the townhouse, but I still have them because I have like that emotional connection to them.
Yeah, exactly. And usually the games I buy on a physical format, I usually don't sell them on, especially not if they're PC games, because you redeem the code and you can play it forever basically. But still, I would like to have those on my shelf. Console games I just sell on for no particular reason other than I can get more games with the money I get from those. Oh, that's actually another plus for buying physical. If you're done with them, you could conceivably sell them on to buy other games with that money.
And it's weird because like for console games, I've bought the collector's edition for a lot of them, and I've just ended up trading the game in or getting rid of it. I have the electric, I guess like that. It's not a lava lamp. It's one of those electric. I forget what they're called. You know those little lamps with the like lightning coming out of it?
Oh, right. You put your finger on it and the lightning follows your finger. That one.
Yeah, like they had it was one like that was themed like a plasma blade for Metal Gear Revengeance.
Oh, that's awesome.
Rising, which was cool. I was like, oh man, I need that. I need that cool little thing, even though I have nowhere to put it in the house right now. I got that. The World of Warcraft collections, the Skyrim Anduin statue. I had the Master Chief collection when it first came out with like the big Master Chief helmet, but that was one of those items that after a while I'm like, you know what? I have nowhere to put this. I'm never going to like put it anywhere again. Oh,
that's a shame because that helmet is really good looking.
It is. I kind of wanted to hollow it out so you could actually wear it, but it was just too much effort.
Plus, it has little to no practical application. Like, when are you going to wear that thing?
That's true.
Well, every day if you have it.
I don't know, but like I kind of wish that more companies would release like really cool little collector's items like that, because I mean I understand they're expensive to make for them and it's not always seen as cost effective, but I feel like for most gamers though, I mean like I think there is like a little bit of a collector streak in a lot of us, so I think it's something that a lot of us would be interested in getting.
Oh yeah, definitely. I still prefer physical versions of games. It's just I buy most of my stuff digitally because it's just more convenient. I mean I don't have to go out to the store to get games, or I don't have to order them online and then go outside to my letterbox. It's just lazy, basically.
Good. I played that game once outside. It was awful.
Right.
No, but yeah, you're right. Like there's that big convenience factor on it and I mean, you could be sitting on your computer and suddenly you're like, man, I really want to play this game. Just click 2-3 buttons and you're ready to play it. There's no process of getting out, getting dressed, going to pick it up, coming back home and all that. It's just right at your fingertips. So it's a lot of instant gratification.
Yeah, definitely. Plus, you know why the games industry wants us to buy digitally as opposed to physical, right?
Why?
So that you don't sell it on to other people secondhand.
That's true.
They can't make money off of that.
I know that's a big issue when I was working at GameStop, because the industry was slowly changing out and starting to put like the almost like built-in DRM for a couple of games where you have like the one-time use codes, the activation codes, and like the early access stuff.
Yeah.
I know EA was notorious for having like their EA Pass, where like you need that little code to be able to play online and stuff like that.
Yeah, they did that on consoles for like the longest time, didn't they? Like halfway through last generation, they started doing that online pass thing. So you still had to give them money if you bought a game secondhand or you wanted to play online.
Yep. You still had to buy. And it's funny because I'm working at GameStop. You could technically buy the online pass through GameStop as well, but I mean, you ended up paying almost the same amount as if you bought the game new.
No, really weird. Plus, it's not the developers the developers can't make money if you buy a game secondhand, but the stores they do make money off secondhand games because like a big part of their business model is selling on used games, right?
Yeah, I mean, and when you sell a used game, I mean, they get 100% of the profit out of that.
Yeah, that's double dipping essentially. That's free income. They would be they'd be mad not to exploit that to the fullest extent.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because I mean, like you said, they buy the game at cost. They obviously upscale it to sell it, and then they sell it again when they have a used copy come in. So,
as you who has worked in retail, you probably know how much those games actually cost because they don't cost 60, right? Like not for the store. Not. What is like the average price that game stores pay to stock AAA games?
I think when I was there, I think it was around 40-ish, give or take.
Wow, that's a pretty significant markup then.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's, and because the thing is, like, they buy in bulk. It's not like, and that's why like the pre-orders were such a huge item because it wasn't like they're buying your store's buying like, oh, let's buy 300 copies to move. It's it's the corporation buying a couple 100,000, even a couple million copies. They're like, hey, we need this much product to allocate to the store, so this is what we're getting.
Yeah, I did know about the buying in bulk stuff, but I didn't really know at what price they are actually buying every individual.
So I mean, it varies on obviously the game and stuff like that, but which is really funny because sometimes you'd see something weird where like you would see a brand new game. I think you see this a lot with Square Enix games where I think the Bouncer for PlayStation 2, I think brand new, it was still selling for about $50 or $40, and GameStop was selling it used for $2.
Wow.
Because it was a game that it had no market, but Square Enix refused to lower the price point on it, so they were still, if they bought it new, they still had to make it, they had to make a profit off of it. So
yeah, you usually see that with Japanese companies, right? They seem completely oblivious to Western markets most of the time, which
it's very strange. I know I've had that issue a lot, like that argument a lot with people concerning Nintendo and how backward some of their decisions have been, especially with like the new system and online connectivity and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, it's odd. They seem to be completely out of touch with the consumers.
Dude, it kills me. Like, I still can't believe that to this day they refuse to integrate Twitch because, in their eyes, watching people play video games isn't a fun thing, despite, market research showing everything to the contrary.
Well, personally, I agree, but I know logically that Let's Players are a huge business. Hell, the biggest YouTuber is PewDiePie, who is a guy who professionally plays games and yells at a screen. So there's obviously a market there.
Yeah, I mean, like you don't have to like it, but I mean, the fact is, it's huge. I mean, Twitch is huge. It was huge enough to be bought out, so it's like
plus free promo. Why wouldn't you do that as a company? What is better than other people, like other consumers, promoting your game for you?
I know they had that YouTube creators program for people playing Nintendo games, but that went nowhere from what I remember.
Well, yeah, because it was insane. It was really restricted.
Yeah, but I mean that's how some people are.
That's how Japan is, apparently. But yeah, we're getting pretty far off topic there.
Speaking of which, box art, super awesome. I like hard copy games.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's probably the same reason why a lot of people buy vinyl as opposed to CDs is the bigger album art. And physical games, and especially like huge boxed versions of games have larger album art. And usually they're quite pretty. So that's another plus.
Yeah. It's weird because I know, like, for me, back in the day, a big reason for me buying physical over digital was just it was a lot more convenient because I didn't have a high-speed connection. So for me, having to download a 30-gig game was kind of, it was very restrictive. So I'd much rather buy the CD and then just do, like, a small, like, 1 or 2 gig patch update rather than have to download the entire thing off the internet. But even now, when I have access to faster internet, I don't know if it's just a habit, but there's some games I'd rather just buy, like, a physical copy just because I want to have.
Yeah, well, I think the same holds true today, though. I mean, day one patches, they are most definitely a thing. And as games become larger and more complex to make, the larger the patches become as well. Mm-hmm. So you'll still be getting that game physical, going back home, popping it into the drive, and then you have to wait for another hour or two when it downloads a fucking 15 gig update.
Looking at you, Metal Gear Solid.
Looking at you, Destiny. I bought that when it came out as a bundle with the PlayStation 4, and I popped I popped it into the thing, and it took me about 3 hours before I could actually play the damn game.
It's always fun, like popping the game and like, I feel like doing some Destiny, and then having to sit down for an update. You're like, son of a bitch.
And the problem with Destiny is you don't jump in for some Destiny because the loading times are already quite long.
That is true. But it's still fun for what it is.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. Like, I was just kind of thinking about it because, like I said, there's, for whatever reason, certain games that I want to physically own. And I don't know if it's just the act of holding something tangible that makes me appreciate it, or because I want to appreciate it, I want to have something to hold on to.
Yeah. That's definitely it for me.
Yeah. I mean, there's some games, like I said, it's just, hey, I feel like playing this. Let me just click 3 buttons, then I'm ready to play. Versus, I don't mind waiting on this game and getting a hard copy for it.
Yeah, definitely.
Although, it kind of sucks too, because I remember working at GameStop. One of the things that I used to look forward to is midnight releases. And again, you don't do that with digital releases, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, it was something cool about seeing everybody lined up, waiting until midnight to get like the newest Call of Duty or, the newest World of Warcraft expansion. I still remember those are some of our biggest ones where we had like lines around the block and everybody was excited to get their hands on a case.
Yeah.
But then as soon as, Blizzard started doing digital pre-orders and downloads and stuff like that, it kind of, the line got cut down exponentially. You still had a couple of people that would come in because they liked the atmosphere of it, but for most people, it just became like an instant gratification thing.
Yeah, I do remember the last big one over here, and that was GTA 5. Like stores all across the country, they were open at midnight sharp, and there were a lot of people at pretty much every store in the major cities. I've been to the Wrath of the Lich King physical release thing myself, which was in Rotterdam on our local equivalent to Times Square, basically, with the huge video screens and stuff. And there were like video game journalism royalty was there hosting the show, and people in like huge armor pieces and stuff like that. That was amazing. Plus, I do remember like when the clock finally struck midnight, the huge screens popped on and you had /buy on it as people just ran to the store. It was amazing. Oh, didn't actually buy the game myself that evening because I already ordered it online digitally, so I could just play it when I got home. But it was great to be there anyway. It was kind of fun, right. Yeah.
I remember, the last minute release I went to was probably Destiny, and it was really lackluster. There was a small line, but there was almost nobody there. Nobody had like that enthusiasm that like that you saw for World of Warcraft or Call of Duty back in the day, where everybody was eagerly anticipating. There was events. It was just line up, grab your game, and then go. And even then, it was just, I felt because nobody had anything better to do that night rather than an actual desire to be there.
Yeah, that's usually why people play Destiny, yeah.
So I don't know, man. Like I kind of miss it. I miss that whole atmosphere of like having that tangible game and that tangible experience where you could actually put something to.
Yeah, definitely.
Not that I'm against the convenience of it, but I don't know. There's something to be said about just holding it in your hand and being able to appreciate it.
Yeah, digital versions don't fill up shelves in your house. So you've been playing Dragon's Dogma recently, and you were talking about that game not having fast travel. And that made me think, like, is having travel time in a game a good thing or a bad thing, or doesn't really matter in the end?
It depends how it's used. And I think that can actually be applied to a broader topic, not just travel time in general, but there's a lot of elements that are present within the game, such as losing health, like sleep mechanics, stuff like that, where the game offsets it by adding something else to like mitigate it. Like, okay, you have a health bar, you take damage, but if you sit still for long enough, you'll regenerate your health. Or fast travel, it's that you can have to travel a long distance, but you can decide to just fast travel and skip it entirely. And it kind of makes you start asking, like, if we're going to put in those systems to mitigate that mechanic, why do we even have the mechanic, period?
You could argue that in a game like Dragon's Dogma, that the road is one of the most important things in the game. Like, traveling is part of the overall experience to such a degree that it will be hard to separate it from the main game, if you know what I mean.
See, I like the way it's set up, and I can see people's arguments because there are times when the traveling becomes very tedious. When you do have to go back and forth between two locations, I can understand how that's redundant and repetitive. When you have a really simple quest that literally all you have to do is just talk to somebody to turn it in, and between you and them, there's like 5 bandit camps. I can understand how that's frustrating for somebody to have to travel like this guy. But at the same time, as I was playing this week, I started kind of remembering where a lot of the things were, and I started realizing it. And I don't know if this is because I've already played it, so I'm a little bit more aware of it. But the way the game is set up is you're meant to walk on foot from point A to point B, because between those 2 points, you start finding side roads and you start finding new little hubs and new areas. Like it's supposed to be a long, tedious journey because I guess it's supposed to drive the player to want to explore something else. Like, oh, it's going to take me forever to get there. Let me cut through the forest and see what happens. And then you cut through the forest and bam, hey, look, there's an abbey. Hey, there's these nuns that want me to do a quest. Hey, there's an ogre hanging out here. And it's things that you would never have like located if you hadn't been in like that weird moment of boredom to where you decide, you know what, I'm just going to wander off the road for a bit because it's going to get there.
Yeah, that's that forced exploration that we talked about on last week.
Yeah, and it's cool. And I mean, like I said, I can understand why people get frustrated. But the game didn't do this as a poor design choice. I mean, it was very deliberate, and you can tell because of the way they implemented their fast travel system. You know, you have the port crystals where you can decide where you place them down. So you can put them out in the middle of a field. You can put them out in a faraway fort. You get 10 of them, so you have to be very thoughtful about where you locate them. And on top of that, you know, you have an eternal fairy stone which you can use to travel back and forth, you know, whichever one. So you do have these elements in place that let you choose when to fast travel, but they are not done so in a way where it'll completely eliminate traveling, period.
Yeah, plus it seems like they turned that mechanic into something that is actually a part of the game world, which is quite clever.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, it's awesome, but again, going back to the original question, though, it makes you wonder. So, like a game like Skyrim or other games where you have a fast travel system, if you're going to give the player the option to skip the entire, you know, this journey from point A to point B, why even have that be an option?
Yeah. A good middle of the road would be that you can only fast travel to places you've already been to, like inns and stuff like that. Or in the case of the crew, for instance, you can fast travel to basically any point you've ever been to. As you drive around and you clear up the map, you can travel to everything that you've already seen, which is all right. It's like a good middle of the road thing, no pun intended, because crew racing game.
Yeah, see, I mean, so what about like health bars and stuff? So if you have like a health bar that regenerates automatically when you stop taking damage, why would you even what's the point of even having that health be mechanic? It almost serves like a way to kind of slow down progression. Like it kind of throttles the amount what you can do in the game.
Well, it forces you to approach every situation with a more like tactical awareness than you would be if. Oh wait, now that doesn't make. Lost my train of thought there. Sorry, I don't know. Forgot.
No, but I guess it was just I was thinking about it because when I heard a lot of people complaining about the travel system in Dragon's Dogma, you know, it made me kind of wonder. Like, well, I can see the complaints, but at the same time, I feel like having that on-foot traveling is a necessity in the game because of the way that it's so integrated with the story and the whole feeling of exploration.
Yeah, I do agree, and I'll say the same thing that I said last week. That's all fine and dandy that you're walking everywhere, and that's fine for the first 5 or 6 times you're walking around that same road. But after 20 or 30 times, it becomes more of a chore than something you want to do or something that feels like it's part of the world. Because once you're bored, you're no longer immersed in the story or the world.
I mean, do you think that's a problem with the game or a problem with us?
Oh, that's definitely more a problem with us, but it was started by the game having an absence of a mechanic that is present in most modern games. So it works both ways. Yes, it works in the game world and it works in the narrative and stuff, but at one point it feels more like bad design than something that should be there, even though it was put there intentionally.
So you think we just kind of become spoiled in a way?
I think so, yeah. Because fast travel is part of, you know, the list of modern conveniences we have in games nowadays. And when they're conspicuously absent, we notice and we can get really annoyed by that. And if traveling from A to B isn't continuously engaging us in something, like again, for instance, the crew has little challenges along the way to wherever you're driving, so you're constantly improving your car, improving your handling, this and that. So it gives you something to do while you're doing that. And if a game doesn't offer you anything while you're traveling from A to B except downtime, that's a bit boring, isn't it?
I can see. Refresh my memory, but does GTA have like a fast travel?
Nope. Well, sort of. You can call a cab and that will bring you to where you want to go, and you can skip that travel, so you can just instantly, like, the screen fades to black and fades back in when you're at your destination.
Okay, but like, you always have to pay for that, right?
That is the only equivalent. Yeah, but, you know, you accrue an indecent amount of money in no time in GTA, so it doesn't really matter. But at least that fast travel system is grounded in that world, so it doesn't feel out of place. Better than, for instance, Assassin's Creed. You just unlock towers and you can jump from tower to tower, which isn't bad, but it's not great either.
See, I don't know, and it just feels weird because even like with like Black Flag, I love the exploration of Black Flag, and I feel like taking that away somehow diminishes it a bit.
Yeah, but the thing is, the fast travel stuff is optional. Pretty much always. So you don't have to use it. But then again, if you know that it's an option, usually going to use it.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. I guess that's what my argument was, that even though it is optional, it almost feels like you're being if you don't use it. Like it's, you're stupid for not using it when it's there. Which is what why I like what Dragon's Dogma did, where they kind of had like a middle of the road thing where they gave you the choice of where you want to fast travel to, and you can set up your own little hub connections, I guess, in a way, by choosing whatever the best location is for you to put a pore crystal down. You're like, you know what? This spot is like, this abbey is relatively close to these two major points, so I'm going to put one here, and this is a big tower, which I'm going to have to come back to, and it's all the way at the end of the map. I'm going to put this here as like a midway point. So I like the way they did it, where it kind of acts as, it's a good compromise, I guess, where you can choose where you want to fast travel, but you still don't eliminate that sense of exploration you get out of the actual traveling on.
Yeah. It's just, I'm just concerned with the downtime, you know what I mean? Like, if the walk or the drive or whatever is interesting, then I don't care. Then I love just walking and driving around. If there's stuff to see there, then I don't really mind how far I have to go, as long as I'm entertained. But as soon as it's just downtime and there's nothing really to see, or there's only stuff to see that you've seen 1,000 times before, then I just see that as an obstacle. An obstacle in between me and the fun that I should be having with this title, you know?
Yeah, right. But like I said, I guess it just seems like a weird concept that we take what we've been given for granted in a way. So to the point where we don't even give somebody an opportunity to venture out the box. If we're so used to having fast travel in games that if someone wants to release a game without it, we automatically are critical of it.
Again, that really depends on the implementation. And some games, the traveling is half the game or even more. Elite Dangerous is a very good example of that. Because most of the time that it's downtime. You're traveling from com buoy to com
just
buoy.
Put on a podcast and just sit there and what is it, subspace?
Yeah, super cruise. Yeah, that's exactly what I do. I just use that game to occupy my mind while I'm listening to a podcast or something, which is fantastic. That's absolutely what that game is meant for.
Yeah, which is funny because that game has no fast travel system, and
well, it does. Frame shift drive is sort of fast travel. You can hop from star system to star system in a matter of seconds, which is quite cool.
I guess it's fast travel, but it's not instant travel that we're used to. It's not like, I want to go to point B and then immediately teleport to point B and cut everything out in between.
Yeah, you can't do that because that would sort of take away the point of the game, actually, because exploring stuff and hauling stuff from A to B is the game.
Sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
You're allowed one. I had one as well. And that's the intro for this week.
Yeah, that works. Yeah, but I just think it's funny because I know I've heard a lot of people give Elite Dangerous a lot of criticism because there's not a lot to do aside from just travel and deliver.
That's definitely true.
But then again, like you said, like the people that do like the game aren't critical of the lack of a fast travel system at all because I guess they internalize that as part of the game experience and they kind of come to terms with it.
Yeah, although a lot of people who play that game, and that's myself included, we would be fine if the travel time was truncated a bit more, or all the comboys that you use to get as close to a station or a city as possible would be closer to the actual station, because sometimes you'll warp into the system that you're supposed to be at, and then the comboy is like 100 light seconds away from where you actually need to go. So you'll be sitting in Super Cruise doing absolutely nothing but watch your speedometer get out of Super Cruise on time, and that can sometimes take 10 minutes, if not more. I had one station that I wanted to go to because I was doing a mission, and they were paying me an awful lot of money to fly a great distance. Then I found out that the nearest buoy I could warp into was like an hour away from the station itself, which was a pain. I just sat there for about an hour trying to get to that thing, and then 5 minutes before I would be close enough to get out of Super Cruise, I got attacked by a pirate and got blown up.
Okay, so I was about to ask, like, would you prefer if there's more active events like that between the destinations where you get attacked? But
not in that case.
I'm sure there's a limit to that. But I mean,
that was terrible.
Having, I guess, peppering the travel distance with like little events, and I think would do a little bit to liven it up, wouldn't it?
Yeah, just make me feel like there's actual shit going on around me as I'm on my way to do this completely different thing. That would be enough.
I think what gets me though is that when you think about fast travel, like take a game, okay, like Fallout 4, for example. It follows a traditional vein that Bethesda does with their games where you have to physically walk to a location, and then after you find it, you can fast travel in and out of there, right?
Yep.
But when they're designing like little in-game environments or like little in-game just random encounters to happen, it's almost like they have to have this mentality of you're only going to ever run across this once, because once you have the option to fast travel, it's almost like they're wasting their time by creating little elements to happen after that, because what are the chances someone's going to want to trek back here on foot after a while? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm not saying that games should get rid of fast traveling, but when you have a game, once you unlock the fast traveling for players, as a developer, it's almost like you have to have this thought in the back of your mind saying, okay, well, the person is almost always going to use this, so I shouldn't be putting critical things in this vicinity because they're never going to see it. Or if they do, it's going to be very, very rare off chance that for whatever reason they're not fast traveling.
Well, that brings you right back to the forced exploration bit. And I'm going to use The Witcher 3 as an example there. They got that bounty board thing, and like question marks pop up around your map, and it doesn't tell you what's there, and they're all in remote places. And that is enough to sort of force you to go there and just leave the fast travel system entirely and just go out into the wild to see what that thing is over there. And the game never tells you that you need to do them. You do them because you want to.
But even then, I think Witcher 3, which this is what I don't understand. Witcher 3 has almost the exact same style of fast travel that Dragon's Dogma does, where it's not that you can fast travel to any city back and forth. You have to find a signpost, and then from the signpost you can go to the vicinity of where you need to be, and then you have to go on foot the rest of it. So, if they're very similar in that regard, the only difference is that with Dragon's Dogma, those signposts are in the shape of port crystals, and while there's fewer of them around, you can actually choose where you want to.
See, I think that's a pretty elegant solution. You are allowing players to warp to the vicinity of where they need to go and not drop them off in the exact place where they want to go. So you still have a little bit of exploration in there, even though you are truncating the time it takes for you to go from one place to the other.
Man, what did we do before fast travel?
We walked, man. It was terrible.
No, it's funny because this is a really unique problem that we didn't really start encountering until we had systems that had the processing power to create persistent open worlds. Because up until then, what did we have? We had segmented games broken up by levels, so there was no reason for fast travel.
Yeah, I actually didn't think about it. It's a relatively new problem.
I think at the most you had games that had kind of like an overworld, like Super Mario World, and then within that, every now and then you'd maybe throw a warp point to take you to another section of the overworld. But overall, the levels themselves were just straight in and out, like self-contained levels, so there's no reason for you to ever need to backtrack.
Is this system the best we can do, I wonder?
I think that we're still trying to find our feet in a way because, we have, technically the persistent open worlds are a relatively new thing. And especially now that we're getting into, the realm of, I guess, space and self-generating, where we have No Man's Sky coming out, where it's going to be a persistent, randomly generated world. We had Minecraft come out with it, where it was a world that as soon as you load up, it just starts generating itself as you go through. And now that we have the processing power to create these things, we're starting to realize that, man, traveling is going to be a bit of a problem.
I don't have the answer because I never even thought about this until you mentioned it. But I just saw fast travel as a logical solution to the problem of having huge open worlds. But I guess that they could be doing something better.
Yeah, because on the surface, it seems like just a convenient solution because, hey, okay, we found this point. There's no reason to repeat that journey, but again, when you start thinking about the more nuances about having these consistent worlds with random events happening with the world itself living on its own, you start seeing, okay, so is the fast travel system or just travel system in general, is that there for convenience sake, or is that there is an actual element of the world itself? Games like Minecraft, there's no fast travel system in them whatsoever. But again, that's the nature of the game. It's a lot about going off and exploring and setting up your area and then finding your way back.
Let me think if I get lost it again. Never mind.
No, maybe it's an interesting thing that it's a relatively new problem. Just when you look at it from that perspective, it's almost taking the bad with the good.
Yeah,
we can create these massive open worlds now, but we're starting to get to the issue where some people want the opportunity to explore them, but other people don't want to be. I guess they consider that exploration almost.
Would you say that as long as traveling in an open world means looking at a loading screen for a couple of minutes, that the developer has failed with implementing it?
I would think so to a degree, because that can be very immersive. Skyrim pops to mind with those god-awful load time when you fast travel.
Yeah. Witcher does it as well. Very
It does,
boring
yeah. The
looking
Witcher does that
loading
as well.
screen.
You know, even when you do the signposts, the area in between there is great, but the actual fast traveling itself, the fact that he has to sit through a loading screen for a minute, 2 minutes, almost depending whether it's a good day. It almost feels it feels like a very poorly designed.
Plus, you know, in the case of The Witcher 3, there's only so many times I can sort of laugh at when the white frost comes, don't eat the yellow snow on the loading screen thing as a tooltip. Don't know if you've ever seen that one.
Yeah.
That one just comes back an awful lot of time. And I sort of think that it was meant to pop up all the time because the one that wrote it thought it was really funny.
That was just one. Make it count.
Yeah, right.
No, man. And it's funny because I'm trying to think of like, okay, World of Warcraft, for example.
Yeah, with the griffins and stuff, like the flight paths, that's actually a pretty good way of
Yeah,
handling that. And the portals are
They
also
don't
quite
have
logical.
instant travel as much. You know, they have like you have your little Hearthstone that you can set to ends, but for the most part, you have to kind of travel the world yourself. At the most, you have the flight pass, but even then, that still means, you know, a couple of minutes of you just in activity travel, like watching the griffin fly.
Yeah, and that's not. Well, it's never really boring. At least
No,
not to
but
me.
is that
because
really
I
a
really
better design?
enjoy?
Because at that moment, you're pretty much telling the player, put the controller down for a few minutes while we get you there.
Well, at least that has a reason, like a lore reason to be there.
God, I remember when the early days when half those flight paths weren't even connected. Remember that?
God,
You remember
yes.
trying to get under a crater, like the long ass roundabout way you had to go about it?
Yes, I do.
There was no direct flight path there. You remember? Oh God, yeah. And it's to their credit, they've added a lot more and kind of streamlined the whole process. But yeah, man, it was awful back then because it meant a good like 2-3 minute
So
flight.
I think we now realize why fast travel is a thing.
Actually, you know what? No, it's not fast travel. Instant travel.
Yeah.
Because I think we're seeing a lot more instant travel where it's just press the button and you'll be there after a short load screen. Fast travel to me implies that you're still taking the journey, you're just speeding it up with the use of either, you know, like a flight path where you still have to wait a little bit, or Dragon's Dogma where you're fast traveling to an area nearby and then you have to hoof it the rest of the way.
Good. Yeah, I think that sums it up perfectly. And we do have an answer. For the first time on this podcast, we have an answer to a question. Less instant travel and more fast travel.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Would you be okay with that? Cool. We did it. And that concludes the 37th episode of the Select Characters podcast. Thank you for listening. As always, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email at selectcharacters@gmail.com or tweet us at selectpodcast. And all right, see what else. Oh, yeah, we won't have a game club this week, which you probably already noticed if you watched the podcast on our YouTube channel. We'll be doing a new game club on Saturday, and we'll actually be doing 2 that day. I don't know if we're releasing the both of them Saturday, but we'll definitely have one of them, and we're going to be recording the other one. This is not relevant to you who's listening. I'm just trying to straighten things out in my head. What else? If you're listening to this on iTunes, please consider giving us a 5-star rating and just give us a review so we know what you think, and you will help the show out by doing that. My name is Chris Anderson. I was here today with Enrique Cancel. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Oh, it was a pleasure.